is up, Chiefs Kingdom? You're on another episode of Chiefs Focus Live with a bunch of freaking drama going on in the NFL and people holding out, people just going crazy, saying stupid things. It's going to be a good show. We got Caleb, we got Quentin. What's up, fellas?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
I'm pretty good, man. Just,
That's good.
living the NFL dream.
What is that? Thursday? Is it this Thursday? It's the Hall of Fame game?
Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah, this Thursday, brother.
And
This
next
Thursday.
Sunday, the Chiefs play.
Yep. What's up, Scott? We got Scott on the show. Let's get into this really quick. Let's talk about training camp right now. Just a little convo. There's been a few little injuries here and there, but nothing major yet. I mean, other than Najee Johnson, which that really sucks for him. He's out for the season. But man, these rookies look good. They're in pads. They're playing hard. They're not letting up. Defense isn't letting up on them. They're hitting them in the end zone. They're putting them on the ground. Playing like real, like it's a real game, which we haven't seen a whole lot of that in the Andy Reid era, where they just beat the living shit out of each other in the games. But the heat and the frustration, I think, is getting to people at this point. And there's been a little bit of, controversy with the Travis Kelce situation a couple of times. And I guess there was another little scuffle during camp. But that's to be expected. But right now, looking at just some of these insane plays by Justin Ross, Rashee Rice, everybody, they just look good. They look like they've been in this system for a while. I don't know about you guys, but I've been watching the hell out of this stuff, and it just looks good.
I mean, when you look at it, they're not in shorts and t-shirt. They're actually hitting, so it's interesting to see how they're doing. I mean, look at across the board. Just got the Chiefs, for the most part, have hit on pretty much almost all their draft picks. We still wait to see on guys like Wanya Moore to see what he can do, but he's kind of buried on the depth chart just kind of due to how the things work out. Looks like, honestly, this is probably one of the better draft classes it looks as of right now. We have to see what they can do on the field per se against competition. But what we're seeing is that specifically the wide receiver class is showing up and showing out. And, yeah, look, obviously we're seeing those issues where guys are fighting. It's camp. Things like that are going to happen. It is what it is. Really nothing that can be to fix that besides Andy Tillman to knock it off. Kelce already came out a couple days ago and said, I got to be a better teammate. It is what it is. These things are going to happen. But I'll say as a whole, this team is looking pretty good defensively and offensively sound. I mean, every time you look at camp, there's a great pass from Mahomes, or there's a great play by defense, or the wide receiver doing great, or the running back. So seeing that this team, it looks like they have taken up last year, it's training camp, and bring it up on another notch. And again, we're seeing that production of another undrafted guys or guys who are coming in on one-year deals who are proving quite vertically and doing better than what we could imagine they were able to do. So it looks as overall the Chiefs are in a better spot possibly than what they were in years previously.
Yeah, you brought up the fact that they're in pads now, and you're seeing some of the hitting that's happening. You're seeing some of the catches that are being made. This is where you get to really feel and see how good some of these guys are, how athletic they really are, because it's one thing to be able to run and jump and play in shorts and a t-shirt, but when you're able to consistently do that in pads when it's 97 degrees outside with 110 degrees in humidity, it really shows. So to see some of these guys, and whether it's the wide receivers, corners, or even the offensive linemen go out and hit, it just, we're closer to football and we're really seeing the talent.
I agree. I wanted to clear something up really quick because there was a whole bunch of chatter on Threads and on Twitter about the Travis Kelce situation. They're saying that he's arrogant. The Super Bowl's got to him, blah, blah, blah. Look, man, what gets to him is heat. It's fucking hot. It's 90% humidity and 100 degrees. They're playing outdoors. You might as well expect, when Andy's ramped it up anyway, there's going to be a little bit of frustration. How many times over the 10 years he's been with Kansas City have you heard about Travis Kelce swinging it or even having an issue with a player
Mm.
in camp. Never. This is kind of the guy had a bad day. It is what it is. And you can't base everything off of one trade. And honestly, sometimes I think the media has a little bit too much access, because that should have never been something that was leaked anyway. But you don't see that out of, we saw that out of Josh Allen, out of the Bills with Josh Allen throwing punches at his offensive lineman. He's done that almost every year. He's fought with somebody on his football team, which there's the reason why, we've talked about for months now, is why there's so much controversy and issues going on within the Buffalo organization. One of the reasons. But lay off the shit. It's something that happened. It's over with. It's done. Move forward. Get on with your lives. Find something better to talk about. I'm sure you guys never have bad days. God forbid anybody else has a bad day, and NFL players are not supposed to have them. They're just not to. I don't know if you guys knew, but they are not human. They're not supposed to have bad days. They're not supposed to enjoy life. They're supposed to be robots.
Superheroes. I thought they were superheroes, JP.
Scripted superheroes. That's what they are.
They have no feelings.
Actors. Yeah, they have no feelings. They're robots that have to be 100% professional, and everything in their life is supposed to be perfect 24/7. If anybody believes that, you're stupid. Anyway, moving on. Everybody is, and I gotta give some shout out to the D. Man, they are looking really good. And Justin Reed put out a tweet that he thinks that this could be an extremely special year for the defense. We've been saying this for a while now, because everybody has stepped up. You got guys from last year that were already great that are stepping up into a second-year system, and is going to be just clutch, I think, when it comes. Look, man, I'm going to call it right now. It's probably going to be a hot take. They're going to be a top 5 to 7 defense this year, overall.
Okay.
I think they're going to be top 5 to 7 defense this year. And that is going to be, without a doubt, will be the best defense Mahomes has ever played with. It's that simple.
Do you think so?
What do you guys think? What do you think, Quentin?
I mean, I think that this defense has potential to be better last year. Look, we saw what it was last year. We were worried early, and, even later in the year, we were still worried about the effectiveness of the pass rush, and I think there are still some questions there. But I think this defensive backs group is going to be the strength of the defense. I was in a conversation with somebody over the weekend about what's the strength of this defense. Is it going to be the linebacking core, or is it going to be the defensive backs? And just looking at where they were last year, and all of these young guys have another year in the system. And while corners are not necessarily a linear progression in terms of their careers, there is some variation there, peaks and valleys, if you will. I just think that with how many young guys you have, I just feel like the odds are, some of them are going to just be better. And I think Trent McDuffie is one of those guys, because he missed so much of last year due to the injury. He's coming back, and this defense overall is going to be better because of it. Trent McDuffie talked about that yesterday in an interview, where he talked about that, so much of his time last year was just trying to learn the defense. That Spagnuolo put him into the slot to be the slot corner a lot of times, and he had never been a slot corner before up until that point. So he spent so much time just trying to learn, and now the game is slowing down for him, and he's getting faster and better because of it. So if that is just a hint of what is to come for this defense, man, and I think this defense is going to be so much better.
Do you think this could be a historically great defense, like maybe rivaling the 85 Bears? I know I'm shooting for another galaxy, but do you think they could possibly get to that point ever in this dynasty, ever as a whole?
I think that this defensive backs group has the potential to be the best defensive backs group that we've seen here in Kansas City, at least to what I can think of. The question is that, are you going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback? And if you give any quarterback too much time, they're going to be able to find a hole in the defense, because that's just the way the NFL is. So it's going to come down to that defensive line. But in terms of your back seven, you should feel very comfortable with the guys that you have back there.
And when you look at it as a whole, too, looking at this defensive back group, they're very, very deep. I mean, ever since the Chiefs traded Marcus Peters in 2017, the Chiefs have not really had a great defensive back group the last couple years, and they finally kind of ramped up to be able to figure it out. But basically, what we seen last year, I mean, Veach has done a very good job of hitting on all these picks. 6th, 7th round picks, guys who are not expected to come in, who are supposed to be guys that are supposed to be individuals who do the special team, are stepping in. Nick Bonito, many others. I mean, they're coming in, they're doing a lot of different things. And this is only showing us that Veach loves his cornerbacks. He's always going to take at least a couple in the draft. And he's always going to find someone that's going to be able to help fill the issues just in case at the end of the day. And that just shows this understanding of the draft system, how he continues to put his time after time after time after time to try to figure out what is the best way to help try to figure out how to stop these other opposing offenses, because a lot of them are trying to go with speed and basically turn to a track meet. And the Chiefs sometimes in ways are upgrading at those positions in order to stop those things from happening.
Hey, you know, this defense is not the same as it used to be, and I like what Philip said. He said, I've been saying our secondary is going to be much better. They'll be top 10 in picks this season. I kind of agree with them. This team is really, they're focusing on, you know, turnovers. I mean, you need the turnovers, and we suffered in that area since Marcus Peters left. We had a few from Tyron, but he was the one-dimensional player that can get you the picks. I mean, it was just that simple. But I think this team is going to really step up and push the boundaries of what this team can do. Now, as far as being historical, I think as far as within the Chiefs, I don't know if it'll happen this year, but I think progression-wise, they can easily be one of the best to ever be assembled. You got a coach that really knows how to draw up schemes, understands offenses very well. You got a D-line coach that's phenomenal. You've got a secondary coach that's phenomenal. So I don't know what can stop us other than, you know, God forbid, injuries. And we have the depth there to make up for a lot of those injuries. The funny thing is, Caleb, if you remember, we did this show, 3 years ago or so, and we talked about how Veach was not the big cornerback guy. He was more into the safeties.
The first Super Bowl season, they only had 4. And actually, they were in danger of having to use Marcus Kemp as emergency safety because that's how bad it got in the room. That's how bad it got. And he was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to make sure I have enough cornerbacks to be used in multiple situations. And that's a smart decision. I believe personally you need to have a lot of cornerbacks and a lot of defensive linemen that can rotate because you never know what's going to happen.
Fresh legs mean everything, man. I mean, they really do. You want to keep those guys healthy and safe. And we've done a really good job of it from that point on. But Veach was never the big cornerback guy. He valued safeties over corners. And he realized that didn't really work out to his favor in a lot of instances. So, and you're right. I mean, we were in jeopardy that year. So he's learned, he's one of those guys that just learns from everything he sees and everything he does. He learns from his mistakes. He learns from his successes, and he just keeps improving on them every single year. We did bring in another wide receiver insurance policy. We talked about him. I think they are going to look at one more player for special teams. They're probably at least going to bring him in for a look and see what he can do. And if they do, that's great. I hope they bring him in. He deserves it. And I think part of that reason is because what I was kind of told was they're not 100% sure if Tony is going to be ready by week 1. It may be week 2. It may be week 2, so they're
Someone
not
was saying that here last week.
Yeah, and now it's, they're saying they might want to hold him off a little bit. I'll give you credit for that, Quentin.
Oh, that felt good. No, that felt good.
Did it feel good? Did it feel good?
Can a word be taken off the phrase now since he had a 1 victory?
He's got to have more than 1 victory.
I've got plenty of victories.
Okay.
The season hasn't started yet. All I'll say is that we are going to be a dominant defense this year. And I think our offense is going to freak out a lot of people. Everybody, I've heard this. I did a show last week. It was called the Summers Tour with a fairly large group. And the one question one thing that was posed was, you guys have like nobodies on your team as far as wide receivers are concerned, besides, MVS. Nobody's really
Mhm.
heard of anybody else. Richie James, okay, people have somewhat heard of him, but you guys won the year before with the same group of guys, less Juju Smith-Schuster. So I'm not worried. He said it's scary to me because I'm not a Chiefs fan. He said, but it's scary to me to think that you guys can take a group of rookies and make them Super Bowl winners. And we've done that time and time again now that, it's kind of proven now. Hey, man, thanks. I appreciate it. Um, so it's it's crazy to think that right now we're going to be going up against Marcus Peters because he's going to play for the Raiders, which
Mhm.
is just
2 times.
I'm so glad that happened. I am so glad that happened. After Mahomes, he's a pick machine. Okay, we'll see about that.
No, Mahomes got the last
So
laugh when he played against when he was with the Ravens. He exposed
yeah,
him in that second quarter. Really, like 3 straight
yeah,
bombs over the top, and Peters walking back like, I can't do anything. I can't do anything.
yeah,
Yeah, you can't because Mahomes just
yeah.
picked you apart. So,
All you can do is talk a lot of shit.
mhm.
Um, and I agree with Chiefs Live. I think Sky Moore is going to be huge in this offense this year. He is, again, people forget, he dropped one pass in college. So he's a great offensive weapon to have. I think he's going to do really well in this offense. He knows the playbook. I don't know, man. I don't have any. I don't have any worries. I don't even have the worries that were brought up last week. Now that I see these guys and they're playing the way they are, they're the press is insane right now. It's like playing. It's like playing in a game. It's full press, no holes barred. Just go out there, play like you're playing. Of course, they're not putting the hammer on Mahomes like they're not letting OBJ scoot by and scare Burrow and make him pull an Achilles and freak up his calf. But they're the wide receivers and the defensive guys are playing as if it was game time, and that's what you've got to do right now. One, you're building up stamina, you're building up strength, but you're building up your mentality, your football IQ, and I think that's what they're doing. I don't know, man. I don't know about you guys, but I am not scared. I'm not worried about the season at all.
I
I'm not
still need
worried
to
about
see the wide receiver core to do it before I get a jump all in and all full throttle.
Here,
I
I've got some wide receiver betting lines. If we want to talk about those for just a minute.
so
Okay, so these are just a couple: Sky Moore, MVS, and Kelsey. Tony's aren't out yet because he's injured, right? So none of the places are releasing them. So Sky Moore's over under for this season is 525 and a half. So would you take more or less than that?
I'm gonna have to take less. I don't see him pushing over that. Especially, I know last year was weird because they had all these other guys. I feel like we're gonna see other individuals fill in the gap in the void. He could do that and cause me to eat my words. I just feel like I need to see it a little bit more because last year it kind of took him a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take him to ease into it. Now, when it came to certain games, certain instances, he played a lot better, but I just feel like it's going to be less. I see we're going to have multiple guys that have 300 to 400 yards. No one's really going to get that quote unquote 1,000 yards unless it's like some of those big names, not excluding Kelsey.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about? What are you talking about as far as his yardage is concerned? That's what
Yeah,
the bet is.
525 over.
I'd have to go even with that. I'd have to just make an even bet with it because when you really think about it, out of all the wide receivers besides MVS, he's the most seasoned guy on the team. So they're probably going to go to him a lot as long as he's not making any mistakes and catching the ball. And Tony's not out there for some reason, but I can see him getting 500, 525 yards. I can see that happening. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, this could be the year that Mahomes breaks the yardage record by 500 yards because of the weapons that we have. I feel like this could be the year he does it. I'm not shooting for the stars. I just feel like he's tired of all the rhetoric. They're tired of the rhetoric. They really pump these guys up to prove others wrong. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think everybody's going to eat, but But, again, like Caleb said, I tend to agree with you when it comes to a lot of this. You have to see it, on field. Hate to do that, especially not this week, but next week we'll get to see a lot of these guys play ball and see what they can actually do. So, of course, it's preseason, but preseason's great to evaluate talent, and we're going to be able to see what they do. So, what's the next
MVS,
one, Quentin?
625.5 over under for MVS.
I'm gonna have to say.
I'm gonna go
say.
over.
You're gonna say over. I'm saying under. Why do you say over?
He's going deep. He's that deep threat that Mahomes has been needing, and he can do it. And when you got all those other weapons out there that are decoys, and Mahomes has been itching to go deep for the last year and a half and hasn't really been able to because he's had to go take these underneath balls and, the drop-offs and everything else. I feel like these other guys might be deep threat or might be decoys for him to be that deep threat to drop that ball 40, 50 yards downfield. And if he gets a couple 150-yard games, and then a few 100-yard games because of 2 or 3 receptions, not too hard to get to 600 yards. So,
yeah, I especially what I've seen last year and kind of the years previously with the Packers, he really, I think he's reached his potential, but like knocking the can off the lid, like pushing across the room. I just don't see that. I think he's going to get those occasional, 50 to 60-yard touchdown, boom, boom, here or there. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that consistently. Last year, the connection between Mahomes and MVS was a little bit off. I do think it is going to be a little better this year. Just in this understanding, I just have to see it to believe it because looking at years past, I feel like I don't think the wide receiver group is going to take a step back, but I think there needs to be a little more showing everyone, hey, this is what we can do.
Okay.
I think I would take the
Quentin?
over. And the reason I would take the over is that MVS is going to be the number 1 wide receiver for the first couple of weeks because I don't think Tony's playing the first couple of weeks. So he sort of becomes the number 1 wide receiver in the system, which is going to give him a couple games to sort of get a good leap on the year. And so then you've got, 14 or whatever games left to get the rest of your yardage. So he's going to get off to a good jump. And so I think that he can have a career year because the opportunities for him are going to be there.
That makes sense. It really does. And I still feel like he's going to have that opportunity to be the deep threat guy that they need. And he's been working out so much with Mahomes. They did it in Pat camp for 2.5 months. They were all down in Texas for 2.5 months with him. They understand the game and how to play it with Mahomes. A lot of these older guys that you bring in, like an MVS that played with, especially a Rodgers, even though there's somewhat of a similarity between the two quarterbacks, you get kind of set in your ways. And, you play under a certain coach, you play under a certain coordinator, a certain wide receiver coach, and you play with a certain quarterback, you get kind of set in your ways. And it's hard to break that sometimes. And I think that was part of what went on last year and the fact that he didn't really know the playbook that well. I feel like he's learned it. And now that they've got all these big weapons that can open the field up, he might just get lost in the shuffle back there and see him catch a few 50-yard bombs,
And that's what I'm hoping happens. I just feel like there was a lot of opportunities last year where like, boom, 40 or 50 yards, huge gain just was negated, just doing an overthrow or just the route wasn't run to completion. And like you said, Pap camp, those things take time. That's one thing. I believe it was Chris Conley when Mahomes was first there. He was saying before Mahomes, we didn't really run our routes to full completion because we knew it was going to happen. Now you run your route to completion and then some because you don't know what Mahomes is going to throw at you.
Yeah, Philip said I'm sick of these rumors. We're not going after Jonathan Taylor. We still need to pay CJ and we have Prince. I agree with you, Philip, 100%. I mean, don't ever count Veach out on anything. Who knows what he'll pull off? If he gets Chris Jones, if him and Chris Jones get done with, from what I understand, they're just really close. If it gets done anytime soon and they have the opportunity, it may happen. You never know. I don't know why they would, but you just don't ever underestimate Veach. I don't, because he does some weird shit sometimes, and it always ends up to be in our favor. Mm-hmm. I just don't see it happening. And honestly, I don't see Ezra trading him.
The only way I see the Chiefs making another move this offseason is if and only if Chris Jones gets a restructured deal. If he doesn't get a deal restructured, there's no room, no moves are going to happen. There's just too little money. You're going to sign that free agent or whatever that's out there, but you're not going to get no huge trade for a Jonathan Taylor, a Chase Young, or for anyone else. In order for a move to have to happen like a Jonathan Taylor, Chris Jones would need to be extended, and then that's a whole other question for another day, trying to figure out what's going to happen with that as well.
Hey, you know what though? Think about something. If he wants out, and they now, which is weird to me, you got guys out there that are running backs that you can sign, but they went out and picked up a couple undrafted free agents to, I guess, supposedly either put the fear in Jonathan Taylor or maybe fill his spot. I don't know what they're thinking, but you could potentially, if it's a $4 million swap, which I think that's what it is. Am I right, Quentin? $4 million is what is the trade value or the trade money for Jonathan Taylor right now?
He has a cap hit of, let's see, 5.1 million. His base salary is a little over 4.3.
Okay, so trade Clyde and
Swap.
give him a freaking fifth rounder and pick him up, and then you can always move some money around to pay him.
But for a
if they
1-year
want,
rental,
it may not be a 1-year rental. I mean, he's only 4 years in the league, so
Yeah. I just don't see the Chiefs. They have seemed to be steadfast on taking a running back in the 6th round or later, moving to undrafted field when they've done pretty good. So if they were to take Jonathan Taylor, I feel like that could possibly mess up the running back room. Maybe. It's kind of Pacheco's at this point, and it's Pacheco, McKinnon, and everyone else. I don't know what adding Jonathan Taylor really do. Yeah, it would elevate it, but I feel like at a certain point you can only do so much, and I feel like the Chiefs would want to put money in positions elsewhere, such as maybe defensive line, if they were to get guys like Chase Young or someone like that. I mean, it's interesting and it's intriguing. Like I mean, I would like to see it happen. It's just a lot comes down on the Chris Jones deal if it will get done.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, again, we need – if we're going to do something like that, you go out and you get a player that you actually really need instead of just – I don't know. I just don't see us needing a running back, especially in our scheme. But I would take the Washington trade over the Colts trade any day of the week. I would much rather have Young and give them Clyde and move on. But again, that's something that has to be worked out still. Chris Jones is eating a lot of money in fines right now, by the way, and
was it $50,000 a day?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I
think he's up to $400,000 right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's $400,000 in fines that can't be given up unless his agents give it up for him. That's the only way that he can get that money back, is if his agents eat some of their fees to compensate for it, because they're the ones that are keeping him held out, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's his choice, but again, they're the ones that are advising him. He goes off that's why you hire an agent. He's got to make a decision fairly quick. I heard they're closer than they were yesterday and the day before. So Ian Rappaport said that he has no doubt, and he's heard that they will get the deal done. I've heard the same thing, that they were closer than they were. Today I heard they were closer than they've been since the original deal was done prior to the Quinnen Williams signing, or agreed upon, I should say. So I'm not really concerned with it, and I feel he's going to play here no matter what. He's just going to miss all of training camp if he decides to hold out and lose out on how many more days is there left in training camp?
A good 2 more weeks.
You got 2 more weeks. I don't see that
2.5 to 3 weeks
anyway.
left. Yeah,
I don't see that happening. He's not going to hold out the entire time. The only thing I can see, and I will say this, and I don't care if I get in trouble or not, I have heard that at some point Veach will get fed up, and if he does, then you might not see Chris Jones here.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, as much as it would suck, it wouldn't surprise me. You just trade him to an NFC team and call it a day. I mean, there's a team. I mean, the Bears are a team that are looking for a defensive lineman. So I'm just saying, as much as that would suck, you won't have to worry about them. The Bears are not going to get good anytime soon. You could even trade into teams such as maybe the Panthers. There are teams out there that are probably going to give him the money he wants and some too, and that she's going to get a good amount of draft picks. So, I mean, no one wants that to happen. No one wants that to happen.
No.
But it comes to push comes to sub.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. You know what sucks?
No, you're fine. Good.
Is that he's already got his fucking rings. And see, if it was a guy that didn't have his rings, then it'd be a different story. But he's got them.
That's why if he is to be traded, which I don't think will happen, because why at this point, unless there's actually like an actual issue between, like we see Jonathan Taylor and the Colts organization. The reason why I don't think he will be traded is because obviously he's under contract and it just does him no good. It does no good for any of that to happen. Yeah. He can still do a lot of different things. He's won 2 Super Bowl rings. He wants to get paid. I understand it, but it comes to a point the Chiefs are not going to reset the market. And also, he wants 30. It's alleged, not saying that it's true, but he wants $30 million a year. The only person I would pay that honestly is Aaron Donald, because Aaron Donald has been consistent for the last 6, 7, 8 years, winning Defensive Player of the Year and all the different things, while Chris Jones is coming to a second and sometimes not even showing up in the playoffs. So I feel like there's sometimes a different balance. Now, it is alleged that he wants $30 million. We've all seen that Beach is not going to do that. Now, will they come to a compromise? Yes, but I think at the end of the day, what we're going to see is the Chiefs are going to have to put some money and some more draft compensation into that defensive tackle position, because they're going to have to eventually find the next Chris Jones. Because even after this year of him being here 3 years, they're going to need to find someone else. So it's all kind of just revolving door. What are your thoughts on that, Quinn?
I mean, I don't want to see this defense without Chris Jones. He is the best pass rusher. We've heard this from multiple quarterbacks, including Tom Brady, where it's pressure up the middle that's more devastating than pressure from the outside. So if you find a guy that can get pressure up the middle, keep him around, there's no replacing Chris Jones. So this is not a situation to where we traded away Chris Jones, we get a first-round pick and some stuff back, and then during the next draft, we're able to find a guy that can get similar production. That's not how this works. Chris Jones gets elite-level production if he was a defensive edge rusher. That's the sort of guy that he is. So I don't want to see this defense without him, because, to me, Chris Jones is the Travis Kelce of this defense.
Yep.
He's the guy that, you look on, there's a bunch of there's a lot of unknown talent around him, but we've got our guy, and he's the one that makes this thing tick. So the rest of the pieces around him that we don't fully understand or fully know their potential around it, that's okay, because we've got our rock. We've got our guy. So I don't want to see this defense run without Chris Jones, because I just don't know the talent level around him can keep up as a high priority defense.
Don't get me wrong. I don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe he's being traded. I mean, I'm just telling you that was something that was said to me, that don't be surprised if he holds out too long and Beach doesn't get fed up and pissed off. Which, again, that's something that we know he's done in the past. I think we're going to see Chris Jones sooner than later. But again, part of this too is keeping yourself healthy as well. And when you're working on a deal and you're holding out at 29 years old, the last thing you want to do is work on a deal while you're in camp and somehow get injured and your value drops to nothing.
Which is understandable. I understand that. I've said this for the last 2 weeks. It's just a little irritating. Every time he comes up to either a year on left on a deal, he wants something to be done, he just sits out or doesn't go to OTAs. And I feel like eventually enough's enough. I mean, you can only do so much. I feel like the Chiefs have cared to him a lot this his whole career, and this is how he kind of continues to repay them in certain aspects. And he would probably argue to me saying, well, I brought you Super Bowl ring. Yeah, I agree with him. I agree with him. I just feel like at a certain point, there has to be some trust and some give and take there. He could come in and do basically the quote unquote, come to camp, not do much, say I have my hamstrings from a little sore day, things like that. Also, if he does that, the issue is people could probably look at him like he's crazy. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that happen. I would love for Chris Jones to come back. I think he's one of the best defensive players Kansas City has had in a very, very long time. And he helped change the culture. And he was on a defense that was not good and had one of the best defensive seasons we've seen in a long time. So I believe a deal can be done. I like it to be done sooner rather than later. But yeah, as Quentin was saying, them fines are racking up. And those dollar bills are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So whoever gets that money is going to have a nice check they're going to do with that. And ultimately, if they can get a deal done, it just makes it better for everything else. And if he rides off the sunset and doesn't want to be here, it is what it is. We got 2 Super Bowl rings.
Well, I think honestly, I don't think it's not that he doesn't want to be here, and I feel like it's going to get done quicker than sooner than later. I'm going to interrupt this broadcasting. Very strange. Nevada, Las Vegas in general right now is under a flash flood warning and evacuation orders for certain people. It sounds like, I mean, you wouldn't believe what it sounds like here with the rain, which is very unheard of for this city to have this type of Kansas City rainstorm that's going on right now. But it's beating the living hell out of my house right now. And then it comes across my phone that there's evacuation orders for people that live in certain areas in Las Vegas because luckily I'm in a highline area, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm like I'm on a mountain. So, but yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, let's move on to something really quick. We talked about Russell Wilson. We talked about the situation with him. Now, there were some questions posed on Twitter today, some things brought up about Denver in general. And one thing that we talked about, and I want to hit on this really quick. When Frank Clark signed his deal with Denver, we said on the show that he got duped, that he was going to be, a fill-in, a rotational piece, whatever the case may be. So I put out a tweet today, or maybe it was on Threads, that he wasn't really participating in practice, that he was coaching guys up, but he wasn't participating. And I went back and I looked, and I found a bunch of their camp film from day one on. He did a little bit in the first 3 days of camp, and since then, he's really not participated a whole lot in camp. It doesn't look like the Frank Clark in Kansas City. It looks like he's just coaching guys up. And, with the arrogance of Sean Payton and the way things have gone typically for players that we release that are either older or, just a hair past their prime or getting into their prime, whatever the case may be, other teams in our division sign them and they get cut. I don't know if that's going to happen to Frank Clark this year because he got a $5.5 million guaranteed deal. Now, if they want to give him a retirement buyout or an injury buyout, which is probably in his contract, I'm sure it is, they could easily do that. I just don't know why he's not participating, and I've tried to get a couple of calls in to find out. But he's really not doing a whole lot in camp. He's there. He's just not doing much. Today, he basically coached up the edges, a couple of the defensive tackles, but he really didn't practice at all. He was just out there coaching them up. What do you guys think of that?
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, he's at the point of his career. He's already won 2 Super Bowls, and he's solidified himself as one of the best edge rushers. Obviously, he's dealing with injuries to a lot of areas of his body, specifically his stomach. It wouldn't surprise you also the way Sean Payton run things for like the veterans per se. It's not really for you. You don't have to do as many of the reps. You're going to be basically being consultant or kind of help compared to Andy Reid. Like training camp, everybody's going, everybody's running. So that doesn't surprise me. Just kind of the way things, I can kind of see the 2 different sides of the different coaching philosophies. But also see I can also see when it comes to Frank Clark, he's going to get a lot of playing time, but I think I can also see him as a point where he's going to start fading back and let the younger guys take a chance. And basically, he's not having to really do much for an extra, $1.5 million. So is he making $7.5 million to basically kind of.
Well, that's with incentives, yeah.
With incentives. I mean, so it's really $5.5, $6 million. I mean, he's making a pretty good amount of change to pretty not have to go through the training camp stuff. And then when it comes to season, he just gets to go and play ball. It doesn't concern me. He basically outright said the Broncos Chiefs is not a rivalry at all. It's not even close to rivalry.
Right.
Yeah, he's not wrong. Yeah, Quinn, he's not wrong, and he's correct.
Who said
and
that?
I think Frank Clark said the Broncos Chiefs. It's not a rivalry. The Chiefs have been
Well, it's
smacking
not.
them around.
Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah.
They just basically have smacked them around every single year, and the second they get close, they just knock them down again. He's basically doing what he did with the Chiefs. Build up the defense. Let's get him up to a point where we need to be. Kind of how we saw him do in the first year when he was here with us. I'm not surprised by this at all.
I mean, what? Frank Clark was drafted in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So the Broncos have beat the Chiefs once since he's been in the league.
Yep.
One time.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Frank Clark, we talk about how old of a Frank Clark, like how old he is.
Mm-hmm.
And the Broncos have beat him literally one time. They beat the Chiefs since he's been in the league.
Yeah.
So
you would think
the
that they would
Broncos
have him playing a little bit more, though.
The Broncos are
given the fact
on
that
a down spiral because
they are.
The Raiders have beat them 6 times in a row.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yep. I would think that they would have him playing a little bit more just because it's a new system. But,
I don't know. I just think Sean Payton's going to be like, go out there, get the quarterback. We don't need to go through all the techniques and the stuff that Spags has him go through. Just different philosophies, I feel like, and I see between the coaching staffs. Chiefs are going to work on the fundamentals. They're going to look at everything, try to figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work. And Sean Payton's like, you know what? I've had Hall of Famer pass rushers before. Guys like Cam Jordan and many others have been part of the Cowboys coaching staff of great defensive players before that. Just go after the guy. We can figure out things later. I feel like that's what he's doing and making him also teach. And, hey, if I'm getting paid to do that, I don't have to really be running out of the sun. I get as much water as I want and all those different things. I mean, it's not bad to end a career if that's the way he wants to go out and do it. Now, can the Broncos turn around and go to the playoffs? He's getting paid more
than most offensive coordinators. So,
yeah, I mean he's in a pretty good spot. Now, he could very well have a tear, but I do believe, and I hope this doesn't happen, but something tells me if the Broncos don't start off on the foot that everyone's thinking they're going to, there could be a point where he gets shut down like week 8, week 9, or 10 or so and basically end up on season-ending IRR. I feel like that could happen as well. There's always that type of veteran. Yeah, and I believe at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to what the Broncos are doing the first quarter to first half of the season. If they're looking pretty good, they start on the gate about 500 or a little bit over 500, and they have a shot to make the playoffs. They'll probably ramp him up more. But if it comes to a point he starts playing more and gets injured, that's not good for him. But if they start playing and he's doing some great things and it's going well, I mean, there's two sides of a coin to look at here. I hope nothing happens to him. I think he's doing a lot of great stuff, but I also believe, too, it's the Broncos with Russell Wilson. Let's ride. I mean, are we really having a lot of expectation with it? I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest.
It's not really let's ride. It's more like let's fall off the horse.
No, yeah, it's basically let's fall off the horse, and then Russ cannot cook. The only thing he's cooking is basically hot dogs and beans that are not
burning water. That's what he's doing.
And that's basically what it's come down to. I'm not saying Russell Wilson's a bad person, but the Broncos continuously have injuries. Tim Patrick just tore his Achilles. You have other guys that are getting hurt. They lost one of their best offensive linemen. He was looking at a visit with the Packers. So it's going to take a lot for me to the Broncos to beat the Chiefs. Now, if the Broncos beat the Chiefs this year, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to be surprised because it's going to happen eventually. But I will tell you this. The Broncos are going to have to change some stuff, and I really only believe Sean Payton can be the only person to do it. He has the grit. He has the frustration. He has all that to help push them to what they need to be. But I think what's going to stop them is just not be able to get over the Chiefs. They may win a game, but they're going to struggle a lot. It's going to be a lot of growing pains.
I absolutely agree with you. I agree. I mean, I right now, there was a big discussion. I think it might have been Tom Pelissero that put it out about the Broncos and Russell Wilson and how Sean Payton was going to rejuvenate his career, which we all know what Sean Payton did. And to me, that was just probably one of the worst things you could do in the NFL is slam another coach. There's like a code.
I mean, was he wrong, though, what he said?
Well,
he didn't say it politically correct, but was he wrong with what he said?
That's the thing. He may not have been wrong, but you don't go out there and do it that way because you know what you're doing. Because number one, you're showing your arrogance, but number two, you're going to piss off a lot of people in the NFL. I mean, Aaron Rodgers
Well-
made it very clear, keep my coach's names out of your mouth.
Sean
And there's a
Payton
lot of
arguably could give doesn't care what anyone thinks, but he's been screwed over by a league multiple times. Like, I'm going to take all the shots I want.
Yeah, but he didn't get screwed over by Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, it's not like Nathaniel Hackett did anything wrong to him.
Okay.
I'm being honest
he
with
may
you, though, JP. That team had some potential, and he squandered that potential.
Okay, but can we agree on one thing? Can we agree on one thing? Russell Wilson's been in the league 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
11 years, okay?
Okay.
In the 11 years he's been in the league, he's had wow, Jesus Lord. He's had – that was a hell of a thunder. Scared the hell out of me. Now my dog's barking, flipping out. I looked this up because I wanted to prove a point. Yes, he's had some decent seasons, I guess I should say. But do you know that he's only had 140 touchdown passing season?
Russell Wilson?
In 11 years. Now,
that doesn't surprise me, and I can tell you the reasons why. Legion of Boom and the running defense. I mean,
okay,
the
but
running
my
offense.
point is he had great offenses, though. It wasn't like he had bad players. He had go back and look at the wide
didn't have to
receivers
do
he had.
as much in the early career. He didn't have to do as much. Now my dog's barking. Hold on.
Yeah,
so we'll
the
see.
thunder's
He
making
didn't
my
have
dog
to.
bark.
He didn't have to do as much, and since he didn't have to do as much with Legion of Boom helping him in a good running game with Marshawn Lynch, at the end of the day, yeah, if he threw 4 interceptions, as long as the game was close, they could still do something. So I feel like Russell Wilson's deficiencies as a quarterback were hidden by Pete Carroll and the coaching
There's my
staff.
point. That's my point. Mm-hmm. That's what I was getting at. That's what I wanted agreements on. People seem to think that it was all about Nathaniel Hackett, and the whole reason why the Broncos sucked and they won 3 or 4 or 5 games or whatever it was last year was because Russell Wilson or because Nathaniel Hackett was a terrible head coach. Look, man, Russell Wilson's been around long enough to where you can call an audible. If you see something on the field and you've got vision and you've been able to see that vision for 10 years prior to this, then you should be able to make a move. And if you've got it in your contract, you can have your own office, your own masseuse, your own chefs, your own doctors on staff, a bed, and all the other shit that he's got stuck inside Mile High. If you can have that in your contract, you can definitely have calling audibles and making a change on the field when you see that.
But what was that priority, though? The priority wasn't all those things you named besides the second one, it seems like,
what do you mean?
For Russell Wilson. I mean, it's like he had priorities in having the masseuse and the office and all those things. I feel like that's the reason why Sean Payton took that down, because it seemed as Russell Wilson was above the team. Now, if maybe he didn't want it to be like that, but that's what it seemed like to us, the fans and everyone. I think Russell Wilson is a good quarterback.
What you look at after seeing here, I'm going to give you his numbers. 2012, 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. 2013, 3,300 yards, 26 touchdowns, 3,300 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 2014, 3,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
Okay.
2015 was one of his better years, 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns. Okay. 2016, 4,200 yards, 21 touchdowns on 4,200 yards and 11 interceptions. 21 touchdowns and 11 interceptions on 4,219 yards. Okay. 2017, 3,900 yards, 34 touchdowns again. So that's twice. And 11 interceptions. Okay. His best season after that was the 2020 season, which was an anomaly for him. He had 4,200 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. So here's how it breaks down. I think it was 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons of his 11 in the league were under 26 touchdowns. Under 26 touchdowns. 6 of the 11 seasons in the league. Okay. 2 of his better seasons were 34 touchdowns. He had 1 35 touchdown season and 1 40 touchdown season. He's had a total of 308 touchdowns in his career. He's had some of the most elite wide receivers in the league. his last year
Well,
with
in the last few years, he's had some relief. Before that, he really didn't have quote unquote elite.
well, they may not have
wide
been elite, but they
receivers.
were good. They were above average. I mean, they never left him just high and dry.
Yeah.
And he always had a great defense. When you go
So
back
what
to
is
that
the
Super Bowl
what is
winning
the end?
season,
So what's your kind of end goal with this?
I guess the whole thing is everybody is just saying that it was Nathaniel Hackett that caused all of his problems. Okay, look, you can take Kirk
No,
Cousins.
it was
right
a collective.
now.
It was a collective.
It was
There were so
absolutely.
many problems. Someone
You can
pulled the
take
bottom
Kirk
of the
Cousins right
Jenga
now, and
or
they
the
almost look
NFL.
the same. Yeah, if you look at Kirk Cousins' his career stats, they're about almost identical, except Kirk Cousins has had a hell of a lot more 4,000-yard seasons, and Kirk Cousins left Washington with a losing record. Why? Because he didn't have the number one Legion of Boom defense, and he didn't have beast mode. Okay, so
And that's why you have to have a balanced team like the Chiefs. They make it to where at all positions we're all good to go. And that's
but you also have to have a quarterback
Broncos,
that can understand the game. And I don't think he understands it as well as people assume he understands the game.
I agree with you. That's why I believe the Seahawks hit a lot of his deficiencies. And that's why you
when you
see
got
where
a
guys
Pete
like
Carroll,
Mahomes can
thank
just
you.
adapt whenever. He can do
Thank
whatever
you.
he needs to do in any situation. And Russell Wilson also relied a lot on his legs and athleticism. He's slowed down a bunch. He's gained some weight, some things like that. And that just happens when you get older. And he's obviously has struggled a little bit. Yeah, you could say maybe his receiving core has elevated and also dropped, but he's also the one missing wide open guys in the end zone, can't get first downs. I mean, the Broncos in some ways, and Quinn, I don't know if you agree with me here, but turn to like the early 2010s Chiefs, where it's like if they get in a third and long, you might just go take a bathroom break because they're not getting it. That's basically what it turned into.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Look, I think that what was said, one, was funny. Okay, let's get that out of their way. I think my biggest problem is I didn't have a problem with him going after the old head coach because what he said was just true. Was that it was an embarrassment to the NFL and to the Broncos when you have to have a shot clock in your home stadium because you can't get a play call in. There's a problem. Okay, so. It was a horrible.
Do we know that's the real reason, though, or do we think that maybe Russell Wilson wasn't getting the playoff quick enough or wasn't lining up quick enough?
I think it was a combination of coach was not good in stressful situations like Andy Reid was, and it caused the team to have terrible clock management.
Now, I don't understand why it expanded past the former coaches. I think that probably was where he went a little too far. Honestly, my biggest problem with it, though, is that he backtracked because the NFL needs villains. Sports needs villains. If you're going to say something like that, if you're going to come out and say that the former coach here, was bad at their job and here were the things that they did, then during your next press conference, when someone asks you to clarify it or to give ask a question about it, don't sit here and give this bullshit excuse that, oh, my bad, I had my Fox hat on, I had my former analyst hat on, I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
No, just say that, maybe you could say, hey, I probably should have said it a different way, but that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel about it.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah,
I could tell someone they're the worst person in the world, but it's how you say it.
Don't backtrack on it, because then I just lose respect for you as an individual. Okay?
Absolutely.
If you say it, if you feel it, move on with it, and that's it.
Hey, and you know what? I 100% agree with you, Quentin. And you know what? That's why I actually respect I respect the shit out of Aaron Rodgers, because he never backtracks on anything that he says. If he says something and people don't like what he says, he gives an explanation as to why he said it, and he says, I said it because I meant it, and that's it. But the whole thing is that there's a professional conduct that you have to actually it's always been there, especially in the NFL. It's with any team for that matter, with any professional sport. You don't just go and slam somebody like that. The way he said it, and it wasn't just it was a bad coach team. It did a complete injustice to Russell Wilson and ruined, a potentially good career, whatever, what a scrub to come out and say something like that and then kind of elaborate on it and then try to backtrack. I don't agree with it. I think it was wrong. And I tell you what, week 5, he better fucking prove himself because he's pissed off that entire team. And they love Nathaniel Hackett there. And they got to play them week 5, I believe it is. And I'm telling you, I don't give a shit where that game is. That's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day,
game.
I think it's going to be a good game overall to see what's going to happen. Honestly, what we're going to see is it's going to be a lot of storylines, a lot of stuff's going to be talked about. I'm not worried about what's going to happen. I do want to see if Sean Payton can kind of keep his money where his mouth is. He has proven he can take a team and make them consistently to the playoffs. Now, if he can do that, great. It is what it is. I would like to see what he can do overall at the end of the day, though.
Hey, this guy said the Chiefs are mid. Hey, man, your mom told me that about you last night. Anyway, moving on. I don't know who you're a fan of, but apparently your team didn't make the playoffs last year. I don't think it was correct to do. I think he should have been a little bit more professional about it, a lot more professional about it. But all these coaches, from what I've heard, are pissed. And it's not just the Jets organization. There's a lot of coaches, a lot of players, and a lot of organizations that aren't really happy with what he said. And I think anybody that plays the Chiefs or plays the Broncos, oh my God, that's fucking hilarious. Oh God. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm
That's
sorry.
funny.
This is just funny.
That's funny.
I guess if they do get that ring,
man, they're the next Chargers,
yeah.
bro. They're the next Chargers. They're going to get that ring.
Go on and finish your thought,
They're gonna
JP.
get
Finish
that
your
ring.
thought in 13 seconds. Don't worry. Just going to finish it.
Oh, yeah, 13 seconds. Well, actually, I could do it in 12. It was wrong to do. They should have never done it, or he should have never said it. And now he's got a lot of people pissed off. And he's going to have to prove himself. He's got to prove himself that he can make Russell Wilson a better quarterback than he was last year. That's what he's got to do. And he's got to do it not just in one game, but he's got to do it for 17 games. And when Buffalo wins a ring, then you can come back on and show and talk. But they got to get their head coaching situation figured out and figure out how to make Diggs actually like his quarterback. And that ain't happened. We've been talking about that for months. That's why that team sucks, because nobody likes anybody on that team. But regardless, how bad did they get beat in the AFC Championship game last year? Was it 36-10? Does anybody remember the score from the AFC
one?
Championship game?
Which
The
one?
year
Which
before
one?
last.
Invitational you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the Cincinnati-Buffalo game in that divisional round. How bad did they get beat?
I don't
when Cincinnati
remember.
smoked the shit out of them?
All I know is the
I
Chiefs
think it
got
was
Super Bowl
36-10. Scott said that's what she said, JP. I think it was 36-10. I can't remember. All I remember is Josh Allen crying, and that was like by the third play of the first quarter. But anyway, moving forward, can you guys give me one solid reason why the Jets won't be either in the AFC Championship game or at least knocking on the door of the AFC Championship game this year? Can you give me one good reason?
Defenses
Mm-hmm.
are not as consistent as offenses year to year.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets?
Yeah. I just mean in general. I mean in the
No,
NFL,
yeah.
like great offenses carry over year to year, but great defenses don't necessarily carry over year to year.
Okay.
I agree
Now-
with Quentin too, but I also add the issue of injuries. And if Aaron Rodgers gets mad, you can might as well make the season a wrap.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Looks like the Jets have already.
Division, and I was just kind of wondering.
And the only thing I'm going to say before we end it, it looks like the Jets have done a lot of stuff catering to him, which is good. Now, issues start happening. I mean, he is in a capital where they like to talk, the New York market. So don't be surprised if we get to week 6, week 7, and some headlines happen that makes him angry. I'm just saying, do not be surprised. So
Yeah,
that's all I'll
and
say
it
there.
could happen. Can you give me your predictions of the NSC or the AFC East right now? Can you give me your predictions of 1, 2,
It's
3,
either
and
going to
4?
be the Jets or the Miami. It's going to be the Jets, Miami. Sorry, it's gonna be Jets, Bills, Miami, and then I forgot the Patriots. Honestly,
So
the first
you're
three
going to
can
go that route?
interchangeable. That's what I'm
Okay.
going to go.
Okay. What do you think, Quentin?
I mean, I definitely think Miami and Patriots are the bottom two. I have a hard feeling putting the Jets at the top, and I think that's just the Jets are the Jets. It's like I will never put Cleveland, the Browns, to win their division because it's Cleveland. You have to prove it to me first.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like those three could be interchangeable. You never know. The Patriots are so far gone. So
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
hurting. I mean, I still feel like they're probably going to be dead last. Who knows? I mean, I feel like the regression is with the Bills this year. I feel like they're going to struggle. They may start off somewhat decent, depending on strength of schedule, but I feel like they're going to have an implosion within that organization. Another one, I should say, and I think it's going to kill their season. So I have the Jets right now with what they've built, what the tools that they put on defense, the coaching staff that they put together, and again, Aaron Rodgers. I feel like they're going to be they're going to win their division. But I still feel like the Jaguars are going to be in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs at Arrowhead. That's my feeling on that. What do you guys think on that one? Who do you put in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs this year?
I think there's a very good chance we could see the Jets. It would not be surprised me to see maybe the Dolphins.
Okay.
Those are the ones I can think of.
All right.
I don't know what the AFC Championship game is. I do know what the Arrowhead Invitational is.
Okay, there you go then. We'll use that, the Arrowhead Invitational, because I haven't seen one of those in Buffalo yet. But so let's I don't even have they even had an AFC Championship game in Buffalo yet with Josh Allen?
No.
Okay. So who do you got, Quentin, us playing against in the AFC Championship game?
Well, assuming that it's Kansas City and Arrowhead, I do think Jacksonville's a good pick just because they're in the AFC South, and so they're going to have an easier ride to get to the playoffs and and host their own playoff game. But I don't think you can take the Bengals out of it just yet.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I fully agree with that. I don't think you can take them out. I don't know how long Joe Burrow will last, or how long he's going to be out. Nobody knows that. They did work out. From my understanding, they worked out a couple of XFL quarterbacks. Is that correct?
They did.
Well, you got to have bodies, and NFL teams don't have to be up front with injuries yet.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
They don't have to say shit.
That's true.
Yeah,
He's wearing a sleeve, so that does say a lot.
Well, I mean, when you're looking, and that tells you right there that the injury was prior to it actually happening. There was something going on with his calf prior to that, him, hitting the ground. I will say that they do have a backup quarterback, and they have a third string quarterback prior to working out anybody from the XFL. So that kind of gives me an indication that maybe this injury is a little worse than they're leading on at this point. But we won't know until, really, because I don't think he's going to see the field until, if at all, until week 1. And that's if he heals completely. You don't want to go from a calf strain and an Achilles, most likely an Achilles strain, to a tear. You just don't want that. And you got to keep that rested. So the only thing I got left is for Quentin. And I don't know if you had seen the comment by, I believe it was it Diggs? Was it Diggs that said this? He said, my boy, Justin Ross, out there playing hard or something. He said that little injury was just a little setback. He's going to come out stronger than ever. I don't know if you remember seeing it. Did you see who put that out? Caleb, was it
It
Diggs?
was it wasn't Diggs. It was a guy for the Bengals. I forgot his name. It wasn't
Yeah.
Chase. It was Higgins.
Higgins.
T.
It was T Higgins. T Higgins.
Mhm.
Yeah. He actually had a lot good to say about Justin Ross. So we'll have
Good
to
for
see
him.
how that pans out. But I mean, he plays the game. So anyway, with that being said, we appreciate everybody joining, even the silly Bills fan. Make sure you check us out on Instagram. We got a lot of good stuff going on there right now. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Threads. All of our shows that are live actually do go to podcasts, so make sure you check it out. We're on every podcast streaming forum there is, every outlet. And we will talk to you guys, I believe, on Thursday. Peace out, everybody.